schedule shined brightly upon Jamestown in the year 2001. For on Tuesday, June 19th, 2001, the first professional team to represent Brooklyn, New York since the Dodgers left in 1957 played their first game in Jamestown. The USA Today of Tuesday, June 19th, touted the fact the Boys of Summer returned to Brooklyn. It announced that today, Brooklyn is back in professional baseball. It's not the National League, but the New York Penn League, where prospects earn $880 a month and dream of making millions in the majors. Most won't. The Brooklyn Cyclones, a short-season Class A affiliate of the New York Mets, open tonight in Jamestown, New York, the home of the Jamestown Jammers. To mark this auspicious and historical occasion, we were able to bring Carl Erskine to the opening day ceremonies. Carl was born December 13th, 1926 in Anderson, Indiana. He played weighing 165 pounds, and his height is 5'10". He received a bonus of $3,500 for signing in Brooklyn in July of 1946. During his terrific career, he pitched 2 no-hit, no-run games, played in 5 World Series for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and pitched in 1 All-Star game. What a thrill it was to have Carl Erskine in our midst.
That's Carlos. That pitch opening day. Huh? Probably wasn't pulling a trick there.
Head coach, manager, number 7, Alfonso. Edgar Alfonso. Number 20, Howard Johnson. And number 19, Bobby Ojeda.
Much history this day at Dietrich Park. Not only the return of Brooklyn to baseball, also here's the first pitch delivered by Jamestown Jammers Zach Miner, but another extraordinary event occurred. Among the many talents of Carl Erskine is his ability to play harmonica. General Manager David Wellenzone was very excited about having a unique experience of the 7th inning stretch being played by Carl Erskine on his harmonica with the famous "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." However, what happens next is a bit of minor league history. Note the perspiration on General Manager Wellenzone as he explains the circumstances.
We have a special guest this evening. Once again, Mr. Carl Erskine on the harmonica. Let's all join in and say, "Take me out to the ball game."
Whatever works for you, my friend. Just we gotta pull it out. Yeah, I get it right there. invention, the top of the eighth stretch. Everybody get up and join our friend Carl Erskine from the Brooklyn Dodgers as he plays Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Gentlemen, from the 57 Dodgers, Carl Erskine, the top of the eighth stretch.
I couldn't get it.
When in doubt, buddy, make it up.
Only in minor league baseball.
Showbiz, right?
When in doubt, make it up. Okay, gentlemen.
Not only is it the first Dodger team back, it's the first time in the top of the eighth that the home crowd stood and sung and take me out.
I think as Greg said, only in minor league baseball.
Anything goes, right? Super. Hey, they were singing. I could hear them.
Oh, sure.
They were on top of you.
You know what? We prepped them in that inning before. They were ready now.
Good job.
Oh, that's great.
Just to the top of the ninth, too. Why not?
All right, let's keep it invented.
Yeah, now we're here. Let's do it every half inning.
I just got to figure out what sponsor I offended when I just bumped him the first game of the year. I want to be apologizing for that.
Can you smell it in the air? The Jamestown Jammers are back in action after a week of training camp. The Jammers finally took the field tonight, looking to kick off their 2001 season on a good note in town. The Brooklyn Cyclones in the season opener. Checking out what went on in this one. Legendary Brooklyn Dodger Carl Erskine throwing out the first pitch. Zach Miner on the mound for the Jammers at the start tonight and pitching well. Honing in on Robert McIntyre and sending him bye-bye. Solid 5 innings pitched for Miner in his professional debut. Bottom second, 1 out. Jammers shortstop Tony Pena with the hot bat takes this one back to the wall. That's a stand-up double for Pena. Pena 3 for 4 and a double on the night. Next batter, Tommy Parrott loops this one down the first base line, stays fair, and Pena comes around to score. The first Jammers run of the season, 1-0. Jammers after 2, but in the top bit, the Cyclones get on the board. Edgar Rodriguez takes this Miner pitch and takes it home. It kind of floats out of Dietrich Park, a solo shot. Tied the game at 1 after 5, and then the tie gets broken. Bottom of the 6th, Jammers Andrew Brown pitching to Francis Core. 2 on, and Core drives it down the left field line. Robert McIntyre comes across to score. 2-1 Brooklyn. Jammers a chance in the bottom of the 9th with 2 on, but can't get it to go, and they go down 2-1 in their season opener. Chad Bowen gets the win for Brooklyn. Andrew Brown gets the loss. He is now 0-1. Jamestown, Tony Pena, heck of a night in his debut. 3 for 4 and a double. Story of the game, 10 runs left on base. Afterwards, managers Jim Saul spoke about the loss.
Left too many men on base in scoring position, so you got to put the ball in play in those situations. Outstanding pitching tonight, and defense was good. Tony Pena hit the ball good. We hit some balls good, as I said before, but we got to hit them when it counts, and it didn't happen tonight.
Good evening, everyone. A historic week of baseball continues in Jamestown. Last night, a Brooklyn team played its first pro game in 44 years. The team's 2 coaches also have some history. Russ Terry has their story.
This may look like just 2 minor league baseball coaches talking before a game, but a closer look and you may recognize them. Bobby Ojeda and Hojo, Howard Johnson. The 2 won the World Series with the New York Mets in 1986 and are now reunited as the pitching and hitting coach for the Class A Brooklyn Cyclones.
It's been great. It's been like, you know, we didn't skip a beat. We had a great time playing together. We had a lot of fun.
Bobby and I were
good teammates back in the day, and so we spent a lot of time together as right now, and it's just been outstanding. Every day we pinch ourselves, we put the uniform on.
Now 15 years after winning the World Series, Hojo and Ojeda still love reminiscing about the ball that went through Bill Buckner's legs and led the Mets to the World Championship.
I was on deck at the time, so I had a great view of it, and Ray coming around third base and being the first one there to greet him. So it was a great series. I was glad to be a part of that ball club that year. It was just a fantastic group of guys, and there's probably not going to be a team like that ever again.
Mojo and I laugh. We go, man, thank goodness we won. Because here we are 15 years later, and people are like still bringing it up. And for us, it's a great memory. For us, it's like, yeah, what do you want to talk about? It's great.
Now Ojeda and Hojo are part of history again. The Cyclones are the first team in Brooklyn since the Dodgers left way back in 1957.
I think a lot of people are anxious, for baseball to come back to Brooklyn, and it's just going to be exciting when we finally get out there and play that first game there.
The word hurt was used when the Dodgers left. The people were hurt, and that word will probably stick with me the rest of my life.
The Cyclones' home openers Monday against Mahoning Valley at Dietrich Park. Russ Terry, Time Warner Cable 8 Sports.
Our first guest is Bob Ojeda. Born 1957, this left-handed pitcher pitched from 1980 through 1994 with the Red Sox, the Mets, Dodgers, Indians, and Yankees. And during that career, he had a win-loss record of 115 and 98, ERA 3.65, and in the World Series, he pitched 13 innings, was 1-0 with a 2.08. Ojeda is best known as the ace of the New York Mets in 1986, where, having been traded from the Boston Red Sox to the New York Mets, he led the staff with an 18-5 record, led the National League in winning percentage, and his 2.57 ERA was second in the league. He won Game 2 of the National League Championship Series. And in the World Series, he beat the Red Sox in Game 3 and started and had a no decision in the most memorable game in World Series history, that being Game 6. Here's an interesting interview with Bob Ojeda. The longest game in the history of baseball was a 33-inning game played over a period of time from April 18th through June 23rd, 1981, between the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Rochester Red Wings. As would have it, the winning pitcher, the pitcher who pitched June 23rd, 1981 for the Pawtucket Red Sox, was Bob Ojeda. Bob, what do you remember about the game? The longest game in baseball history, and
I only saw 6 innings of it.
is that right? How did that work out? Did you were called?
I was pitching the next day.
Yeah.
You on? You know?
Yeah, I'm on.
Yeah, I was pitching the next day, so I went home and I read about it. Well, actually, one of the guys called me, and then I read about it in the paper. I thought he was lying. And then, as fate would have it, I was starting the next day. And then, as fate would have it on the other end, I think he massaged it around, because I was going pretty good at the time. Joe did, and I wound up starting that, the continuation of it, which was good.
We had some Hall of Famers in that game. A guy named Ripken and a guy named Boggs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, it was something. It was something. I'm glad we won. Another game I'm glad we won.
Start off in Boston. When you start with Boston, your paths must have crossed with Ted Williams and Carl. You an awe factor when you walk in that first time and there's...
Well, when I walked in 1980 as a rookie, yeah. I mean, that was all those veteran guys. It was, Yaz, Rice, Fisk, all of them were there. So no, that was cool. That was. I would imagine these little guys feel the same way when they go up to a big league club today. You know, all the names, all the guys they see on TV. No, it was great. But Ted was down in spring training. He was always in spring training. And I remember spring training of '79. I was throwing batting practice, and I couldn't find the strike zone, right? And there's Ted behind the thing. Plus, you know, we all know it's Ted. And he goes, "I'll bet you," in that booming voice he had, "I'll bet you Cadillac you can't throw 10 strikes in a row." I threw 10 in a row after that, and I still ain't got my Cadillac. So take some of that money you're going to use to freeze them and flip me, you know, 40 grand for a caddy. That's a true story.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's a true story. Well, he did it, and I came through, and, you know, he couldn't say nothing after I threw 10 in a row.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah, so it was cool.
Now, the team leader in that whole squad of Boston, was it Fisk? Was it Yastrzemski? Was he sort of the quiet leader?
Well, it was Yaz because he was Yaz, you know, but it was a good bunch of guys, just not real jointed. You know.
With Boston, you then get traded to the Mets. Was that a surprise?
No, my time was up in Boston. It was time to move on. So I was just glad to be going to the National League. And then, quite honestly, I didn't know that much about the Mets. I didn't know they were contenders because in Boston, the playoffs really never became a thought process. It was always like last game's October, whatever, and you're going home. So I always paid attention to my own. I live my own little world. Wherever's in my world, I pay attention to, and I know my little world. But outside that little world, if it doesn't pertain to me, I could care less, you know, in the profession.
Did you follow the history of the game? I mean, are you one of those guys who likes to read about
No, I like
guys
to
in
do,
the 20s, 30s, that type of stuff?
No. I find it incredibly interesting that, you know, I was always a fan of Babe Ruth, you know, of what he did. And I'm more into, like, the people than the stats.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I hear the stories of the guy, you know, I want to know about the guy. I don't want to look at the numbers.
Right.
I care less about that. I don't know nothing because I know guys with great numbers who are, you know, as valuable as this stone.
Right.
You know, but I want to know. I listen with great interest when guys tell stories of the guys. That I find incredibly interesting. And you know, if it comes in a book, it's generally diluted or twisted or certainly not even close to the truth.
Right.
So to sit down and talk with somebody who was there and relates a story about that, I'll sit there for days, months, years to hear those stories.
Right. Do you have a role model? You're in California, born in 1957.
Oh, my dad, and like everybody out there, Sandy Koufax.
Yeah.
You know.
So the Dodgers, was that the team?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then the Angels came in the early 60s, I don't remember what year, and they built that stadium, which was a few miles away from where I was. And I kind of liked them, but I was still like Dodgers. My Uncle Arthur was a Dodger guy, so I was all Dodgers.
Goal in life, baseball, aside from Sandy Koufax, what you wanted to do as you were growing up, being a pitcher?
When I was little, it was like, oh, I want to be in the big leagues, I want to be in the big leagues when I was little.
Right.
And then as I got older, then it's like, you know, interests, different things come up, but then it became, once I signed, when I actually put my name on the thing with the Red Sox, it became, I want to be the best I can be.
Right.
Completely changed. It no longer became, I signed that contract, it wasn't, I want to be in Fenway Park, it was, I want to be the best I can be. That was the contract I signed with myself.
1986, you do get traded to the Mets. Now your world has changed from American League to National League, and you look and you see Ron Darling, Dwayne Gooden, Sid Fernandez, Aguilera. I mean, it's quite a staff.
It meant nothing to me, though.
Yeah.
I didn't know their accomplishments or shortcomings or anything, so I didn't care less where I was. You know, it didn't matter to me. It was just relief getting out of Boston. It was time to go. So coming in there, then you're really just getting to know those guys, and we had a great bunch of guys. But
the spring of 1986 was filled with more than the usual hopes and expectations. The squad that had come so close the season before was continuing in its process of maturation. Yet Mets management knew that the roster still needed to be fine-tuned. Over the winter, acquisitions were made. One move was for left-handed pitcher Bob Ojeda, picked up in a trade with the Boston Red Sox.
Our next guest is Howard Johnson, commonly known as Hojo. born in 1960. He played from 1982 through 1995 with the Tigers, Mets, Rockies, and Cubs, but is best known for his time with the New York Mets. He had a .249 lifetime average with 228 home runs and 760 RBIs. Hojo was originally a pitcher in the Detroit Tigers organization, but became an infielder to allow his natural batting talents to blossom. When finally given a chance to play regularly with the New York Mets, Johnson established himself as one of the most well-rounded hitters in the game. In 1987, he and Darryl Strawberry became the first teammates to both hit 30 homers and steal 30 bases. And Johnson's 36 homers set a National League record for a switch hitter, which he would break 4 years later. He was an All-Star in 1989 and 1991. When he was interviewed in 2002, he was the manager of the Brooklyn Cyclone in the New York Penn League. So here we are, and we're playing the St. Louis Cardinals, and all of a sudden, this guy grabs your bat.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yep. Well, you know, I just rounded third and touched the plate, and I realized that he had come over and grabbed the bat. It was laying there, and I think we actually both had hands on it at one point. I was like, you know, give me the bat back, you know, and he's trying to grab it from me, and I think that's what I think we both had it at like one time. It was kind of comical, but at the time it was pretty serious because that was a big rivalry, you know, for us, St. Louis.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so Whitey Herzog just, you know, this is my pick.
Yeah.
Whitey sat there and he said, I can't believe this guy, the size he is cranking him out the way he's cranking him out.
Yeah. He, well, you know what? You know, the thing he didn't know is that I've always been able to hit home runs. In the minor leagues, I hit home runs. But this is my first year that I was playing every day. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, he was a little taken aback. You know, it's like if a guy, he's a part-time player and he hits 10, 15 home runs, and all of a sudden, you know, now he's hitting 30. Well, you got to say, well, what's changed? Well, you know, for me, it was just a matter of fact, my bats doubled. You know, I was getting more chances. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if you look back at the numbers, you know, through my minor league, you know, career, I've always been able to hit for, you know, pretty high home run numbers.
Do you do any specific training that makes Howard Johnson just be a, I mean, did you go to some, what certain technique that you
Well, I was a big believer in weights, you know, working out with weights. You know, we had a strength and conditioning guy, Keith Cedro, that was there, who kind of helped revolutionize, you know, our approach to weightlifting with the Mets. All we had before was a room no bigger than this, with like a universal machine in there and a few dumbbells, and it got to a point where we had a nice big room with nice weights and machines and stuff. So, you know, our approach was a lot different as far as you know, how important weights are to stay strong, you know, throughout the season.
Right.
And I think that, plus, you know, I was a better player that year. That's, you know, I think you couple all those things together.
I think this is the proper picture of the picture.
Yes.
Now,
I love these photos. These are great.
What I did was I went to spring training back in St. Petersburg when you guys were down there, and somebody was doing pictures for Topps Baseball. So I just went right over his shoulder and did this stuff. So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, Worrell, you ate his lunch.
Yeah. And I don't know why, because he was difficult. You know, people they assume that when you have success against a player, a pitcher, they just assume that you walk up there and, you know, everything's gonna be fine. But that's not the case. You know, with a guy like this, he threw so hard, and he had a curveball and split-fingered fastball and stuff. So he had pitches to get you out, and I just battled him, you know, tooth and nail every at bat we had, and I don't know how I was able to get the you know, the advantage there, but you know, we had some good battles, and he's a good guy and a very good pitcher.
Did it get to the point where really Herzog would move Worrell around you?
Well, I think he made a point not to put him in that position where he had to face me late in the ball game if he could help it. He got burned enough. And Whitey was a smart guy. I mean, sometimes things that's just the way they are. You hit a guy good, and some guys you don't. And I think Whitey tried to find the matchup, and that's why he was a good manager, because he was always looking for the right matchups at the end.
We're talking about was ace relief pitcher Todd Worrell for the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals and the Mets battled day in and day out during the mid-'80s, and it found huge notoriety at the beginning of 1986. Here's an example of what Howard was talking about.
The wheel of fortune first turned in St. Louis as the Mets faced the arch-rival Cardinals. A key blow was struck on April 24th. It was the 9th inning of the series opener.
2-2 to Howard Johnson. The Mets need a long ball. They might have it. This ball is out of here, and this game is tied. Oh, my goodness. So much for fate.
It just kind of showed that the Cardinals that we were going to be tough to beat. In the previous year, they'd handle us pretty good early in the season, and we were showing them this year that we're going to handle them.
We'd be in the next 3 games fairly handily, and their season went down the hill after that. I think they had so much emotion in that series that after we beat them 4 straight, that just eliminated them from any kind of contention.
This year. You've had Sparky Anderson, you had Davey Johnson, you've seen the Whitey Herzogs of the world work.
Yeah.
Are there certain exemplars, guys, that say, gee, I'm trying to follow the routine of such and such? You're a role model as a manager.
Well, I'm a big Davey fan because Davey Johnson, because I played for him and I had my best years with him, and I like the way he handles players. He lets them be themselves and be let their personality show through, so to speak, and that's the way I kind of like to be. I want my players to feel like I'm going to let them be themselves, and I have that that attitude where I want to win, and I want those guys to share that. And so if they see me intense and all that, I think that's good, but I think it can also be counterproductive also. I played with, Davey was very low-key, and I think it's important that you don't let your players see if you're nervous about something or, a situation that you see, developing during a ball game where, you may not have the upper hand. You can't let them feel in the least bit worried themselves. So.
Pieces for a winning team were now in place. All that was needed was someone to lead them, and Cashin found that man right within his organization, Davey Johnson.
We needed a younger manager, a manager that communicated perhaps a little better with the younger ball players, a manager that was not afraid to take a chance.
The biggest thing in 1984, I think, was using some young pitchers in the starting rotation, and I knew something that a lot of other people didn't know. I knew that Dwight Gooden was going to be on my staff. I'd be my.
I don't think that there's a set way, you set up your game plan. I think you have to adapt to the team you're playing, including the bullpen. You got to know who you have available and who they have that may be up late in the ball game. So you have to kind of work that way.
At this level, are you able to really appreciate the talent on the other team? Your scouting reports, do you...
Well, we don't have any scouting reports, no. Not like we do, at higher levels, but, the scouting reports that I do are, what I see. I look at the stats, and I see who can steal bases, and I see, the guys that are the RBI guys, and, I make notes of that, and so, that plus going in, knowing that, and then watching them play, watching how they go about the other team, what they do in situations, it kind of helps me formulate a plan. So, like a team like Jamestown, we've only seen 3 times all year. Last night was very interesting to see, who did what in the situations and stuff, so that tonight and tomorrow I'll have an advantage when it comes to, making some moves.
You grew up in Clearwater, Florida. Was there an idol, baseball idol, a guy that you'd say, gee, I want to be like him?
Well, Clearwater, the Phillies were there. You know, I was always a Mike Schmidt fan. You know, when I was in high school, I changed my number to number 20 because of Mike Schmidt. So, you know, I always liked watching him play, and you know, I thought, you know, what a great guy to copy. You know, if you're going to copy somebody. And then, but before that, I was younger. I used to watch the Braves and you know, Hank Aaron, and the A's were in their little dynasty period. So I was a big Reggie fan, and you know, those are the teams I followed, and you know, those are some of the players that I really enjoyed watching play and tried to copy.
So you end up with Detroit, your first major league experience.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, World Series in 1984.
Yes.
Sitting there watching Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker, did you feel that you had a sense that you belonged on that team, or you could break into the infield on that team?
No, not with that team. They were pretty solid, you know, and you know, for me, I was young and I was just trying to get my feet wet, and I wanted to stay in the big leagues. So I was eager to learn, and I looked at it as an opportunity to learn from guys who have been successful and that were going to be, you know, potential Hall of Famers. You know, so I did as much learning as I possibly could and talking with them, and it certainly helped me, you know, to see those guys play every day.
Infield was your position?
Yeah. I was primarily a third baseman. I played short a little bit in minor leagues and high school and stuff, but then I was put in the outfield a little bit, and so I think Sparky was trying to find places for me to play too as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've hit from first to ninth. You know, I've hit everywhere in the lineup. I've DH'd. I've played everywhere just about. So you know, I feel like that helps me when it comes to, you know, my managing and getting a feel for positions and what guys do.
What do you feel like walking up to the plate in your first World Series in 1984?
Yeah.
What was the reaction?
Well,
It's a dream kind of come true to show up.
Yeah. Well, the thing was that was so bizarre about that whole year was, you know, I was the left-handed half of that platoon, and then I didn't get to play the last couple weeks, and then going into the playoffs and stuff, I didn't get to bat or play. So the World Series came around. It was pretty much the same story, but you know, I was just, you know, I was being patient, and I finally got to hit in Game 5, which is the final game, and against Goose Gossage, and that was a thrill, and you know. Then I got traded to the Mets, so I got to face him on a regular basis with San Diego, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. Bob Murphy once said, trying to sneak a fastball past Howard Johnson is like sunshine, getting sunshine past a rooster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the easiest pitch to throw for a strike's fastball, you know. And if a pitcher can throw that fastball, you know, inner half the plate and beat you, then he's gonna get you a lot. So, you know, I made up my mind that, you know, I wasn't going to get beat by, you know, fastballs, especially, you know, middle of the plate in, ever. So maybe that's one reason why I had success against the hard throwers, because, you know, I knew that I could beat them. You know, I didn't worry about their fastball as much as some other guys maybe did.
You know, it's funny. I remember a game watching on TV. I think it was about 1985. It was at Shea. Against the Cardinals, Danny Cox had just hit George Foster.
Yeah.
And then you came up and hit one off the scoreboard.
Yep, hit a grand slam. That was a huge night. I tell you what, it was one of the thrills of my career. I still remember that very well. And you know, being against the Cardinals and all, that was such a big rivalry that Shea was rocking that night for sure.
Your paths didn't cross with Severs, did it?
It did. I faced him in the American League.
Did you?
Yeah, hit a home run off him in Chicago, as a matter of fact.
Is there anybody who had your number? As you reflect back?
There was always guys, you know, that you gave you fits. You know, some guys were less known. You know, probably the most known guy would be like Tom Browning with Cincinnati. You know, he gave me a lot of trouble with. I did hit a grand slam off him eventually, and there was a few other guys that gave me problems. But you know, after 15 at bats or so, you know, I seemed to figure them out too.
You become, with Darryl Strawberry in 1987, the first really teammates to 30-30.
Yep.
But that was really kind of a glory time for the Mets,
Mm-hmm.
and you're an integral part of that whole process. As you reflect back, though, there are some key games, key highlights. 1986, Nothing else, you're probably one of the most photographic guys.
Well, I remember hitting the home run in St. Louis to help us, go on to sweep those guys there that year. And, Whitey seems to think that that was the turning point of the season for both teams. And I remember that very well.
1989, I think it was Davy Johnson who said that that whole season was really a Howard Johnson highlight. I miss when you got done, did you pinch yourself?
I just remember the last day in Pittsburgh. I think I was two for 2 or 3 for 3 that day, and I just remember thinking when it was over, I was like, wow, that was the most fun I've ever had, for a baseball season. Everything seemed to work, I got to drive in 100 runs for the first time, and I stole 40 bases that year, and had a bunch of doubles and stuff. So I had a lot of fun that year, without a doubt. Our team, we had some injuries that year. We struggled. Our pitching staff all got hurt, so we finished second. But overall, it was a heck of a year, for me personally.
Howard Johnson began to emerge as a star with 36 home runs and 32 stolen bases. Hojo joined the likes of Aaron, Bonds, and Mays in the 30-30 club and sashayed into the hearts of New York fans.
They're standing all over this ballpark and applauding the season that Johnson has had.
And thanks to Darryl, the Mets became the first team ever with 2 30-30 members. No question, the Mets offense had style.
Finally, at one point you had some injuries and found your way, to the point where you finally wake up one morning and you say, I hate to admit this, but I think I'm done.
Well, I don't think you ever, that time came for me in '97 during spring training. I tried to come back. I missed all of '96, and I just was a step behind everything, and I felt like, defensively I was a step behind. Offensively, it seemed like I was out front of everything. I couldn't wait on the ball very well, and had a tough time with my timing. But physically it was just getting tough to play. My legs were killing me, and my shoulders and stuff had been beaten up pretty good and stuff. And I think that's just some guys can play a longer time. That's they're born with it. It's God-given, and other guys they wear out sooner. I felt like my whole career I overachieved. I always gave 110% on every night, and if it caught up with me. I was 35, so it got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore.
I think you still hold the record in the National League for home runs for a switch hitter?
Nope, it got broken.
Who broke it?
Todd Hundley broke it, and then Caminiti broke it.
Okay.
When I broke the record, that was like a 35-year-old record. It was like an old record, yeah. And I did it on the inside the park home run in Pittsburgh. Barry Bonds was playing left field, and he tried to catch a ball down the left field line, and it got by him, and I scored.
Why a switch hitter? Who taught you to do that?
My dad. Yeah, I was a natural left-handed hitter though, so I've always had more success that way. I've always been able to make more adjustments that way. I had like 2 seasons right-handed where I was like really good, and that was always been kind of my Achilles heel a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So let's go. We're going to fast forward here till you are with the Mets organization,
Mm-hmm.
and last year, the very first professional game was here in Jamestown, New York.
Right.
Carl Erskine was here, a lot of fanfare.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to spend any time with Carl at all?
Yeah, I talked to him, and I've talked to him. I've talked to Duke Snyder and Ralph Branca. A lot of the older guys have been by our stadium. We've run into a Carl Erskine thing here. As a matter of fact, get together. It was kind of cool. So.
Yeah.
I think it's good, to be able to connect with the history of baseball. I think it's important. And one of these days, I'm going to be one of those old guys, that they're going to talk about that these players never heard of. To be honest with you, there's probably guys going to be playing pro ball in the next 2 or 3 years that don't know who I am, which is okay. That's part of the game.
I remember a few years ago, Bill Mazeroski came here and he was a coach for the Expos in Jamestown. The kids had no clue.
Yeah.
No clue whatsoever.
It's a different game, you know. Nowadays it's a different game. I'd say my era, you know, playing the game changed a lot, and so I kind of feel like I was on both sides of the fence. You know, I was in the old school, at the end of the old school era, and then the new style, the new breed, and then now coaching, you see the new breed up close, you know, and it is a different game. You know, it's a different all the way, but the fundamentals are the same, and you know, still have to work very hard to get to the big leagues.
So fill in the blank. Howard Johnson says, the funniest thing that ever happened to me in baseball was?
Probably, I was in Detroit and I went to steal second base with 2 strikes on the hitter, and I stole the base. The catcher threw the ball and the umpire went safe, and the ball went into the outfield. Well, I got up and started running, and third base coaches waved me in, and Billy Consolo, who was a coach of Detroit, was like on the tops of the dugout, like, come on, score. And so I get all the way to home plate, I slide into home plate, and I guess it was strike 3 on the hitter. But nobody knew it. That was probably the funniest thing that ever happened to me on the field.
Guys didn't razz you a little bit, did they?
No, they didn't. No, it was just it was comical, you know. It's funny.
What's next for Howard Johnson? Here he is, a manager of a short season A team.
Yeah.
What's your goal?
Well, you know, I really want to be in the big leagues as a coach or a man. You know, I don't know if I want to manage. That's a whole other bird. You know, I don't know. This year I'm learning. I enjoy lots of you know facets of managing. You know, I like. I've always considered myself a very smart player, so I like to match wits and do things. So that part really intrigues me. But I also enjoy the hitting side of it, and if a hitting coach, you know, I'd be very happy with that too. But right now, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about managing.
You had a couple of teammates who really had extraordinary careers ahead of them who kind of fallen on hard times with Darryl and Dwight. Mm-hmm. Opportunities lost. There's a couple of guys that probably would have been Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Is that a lesson that is imparted to your kids?
I think so. I think those guys have incredible talent. There's no question about that. Everybody can agree on that. I don't think you'd find anybody with any baseball knowledge that would say these guys weren't talented. Mm-hmm. But you know, the thing about baseball, you have to do it every year, and you have to improve, or you know, to stay in the game a long time, you have to do certain things right. And those guys, they made some mistakes, and I think the lesson that we try and teach our guys is that, you know, everybody has the word potential across their chest, you know, and that could be the worst thing that could happen to you, is to leave the game with that still there. So I think, guys, you know, the most important thing is that, you know, if you make a mistake and you cost yourself, you know, you can't get that back. Mm-hmm. Sooner or later, it's going to be the final time, and that's what happened to those guys.
Great. Can I show you one more picture?
All right.
This is the New York Mets highlight
Mm-hmm.
book. And let's see if I can find it quickly here. 1986.
Right. Well,
One of the 1986 World Series got underway against the Boston Red Sox, fresh off a miracle finish of their own. And in this classic match of seasoned vets and raw recruits, it seemed like neither team could shake the first game jitters. Until that is the 7th inning, and a lonely Met mistake.
One down, the pitch, ground ball to second. Truffle has it go between his legs. Strawberry picks it up. Here comes Rice. Throw coming to the plate to Carter, not in time. Throw to second, not in time. Red Sox lead.
1-0. The final and the series score, both in favor of the Sox. Game 2. The Mets had their #1 pitcher on the mound. But Gooden wasn't good enough, as the Red Sox pounded out a 9-3 decision, taking both the games at Shea and heading home with a 2-0 series lead. The dust had barely settled on the pre-game entertainment when the Mets tipped the scales in their favor.
Number 4, Lenny Dykstra, center fielder.
Lenny Dykstra greased the squeaky wheel, and the Mets responded with a first-inning explosion that put all talk of sweeping back under the Boston rug. Carter helped to fuel a 4-run first inning for the Mets, who dug deep and struck oil. That proved more than enough for Bobby Ojeda, who in his first trip back to Fenway Park stymied his former team and gave the Mets their first win of the series. The victory took a lot of pressure off the Mets, and in Game 4, they looked to Ron Darling to snag still another. Darling pitched 7 shutout innings, and the other half of the battery charged the Boston Knight with 2 towering home runs to spark a 6-2 Mets win and even the series at 2 games apiece. Game 5 in Boston, and some Red Sox glory from the past gave way to dreams of the present, as Bruce Hurst rose to the occasion by humbling the Mets for the second time in the series. The 4-2 win sent the series back to Shea, with a championship for Boston just 1 game away. It was.
No, I pitched Game 6.
Game 6 against Hurst. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Was that against Hurst? Hurst? Yeah, that's right, because he was MVP. Yeah. Yeah. No, that was you know, that was just an incredible thing, and I'm so glad we. At the time, I didn't realize, you know, what a big deal it was. But as time goes on, you know, and the thousands of people come up to us all the time and, you know, relate to where they were and what they were doing and all those great things. No, it was a great time, and to beat those guys, there was nothing better. So.
Simply an extraordinary game. One where high-flying Met fans displayed a most enterprising knack. And in the 8th, the Mets showed a talent for coming back.
Hands on their feet here at Shea. Bases loaded, 1 down. Red Sox lead 3-2. Swung on, hit in the air to left field. It'll be caught, runner tags. Here comes Mazzilli. Here comes the throw to the plate. Not in time. The game is tied at 3-3.
Into the 10th, the tension mounted.
People have stood still the way this game is going. By far and away the most intense game of the World Series. Now the windup, the pitch to Henderson, well hit, deep to left field, way back, going, gone, a home run. The Red Sox are in front, 4-3.
The Sox would add another to make it 5-3. The celebration was on ice. 3 outs were all they'd need.
I pinch hit, I think, for Elster or Santana, one of those guys. And the situation was I was going to bunt. It was first and second. And I offered it the first bunt, and I fouled it off. And then Davey let me hit and fouled the ball off. I think I check swing, foul ball, and then I ended up striking out. I stayed in the game. And so my turn was coming up again, and I was on deck when the ball went through Goofy's legs. I know which picture you're talking about. It's a great shot. Yeah. Yep. It's funny because I see that, and I can remember it so clearly. And I remember being on deck. I was kind of like kneeling a little bit, watching the play happen, and it's just unbelievable.
Explain the emotions. I mean, when you think about it, you had Gary Carter got a single, Kevin got a single.
Ray Knight got a single. and a wild pitch.
Right.
And then the error. I mean, we scored 3 runs with 4 hitters, all with 2 outs. I mean, it happened. It happened very quickly. And I think the thing I'll never forget is how you could sense some momentum building. You know, Gary got the hit, and then Mitchell got the hit. You know, and the crowd started, you know, getting a little more excited. And I know it wasn't a full house then because people had left, but the people that were there, I mean, it was pretty intense, you know, as it was happening.
A hit in the air, Rice is there and has it for the out. And the Red Sox are 2 outs away from a championship. And a fly ball to center. Henderson going back under it now. He has it, 2 men down.
You know, I'd love to lie and say, yeah, you know, I knew we were going to come back. No one, I mean, everyone inside and everyone on the bench believed we had no chance. I mean, I believe that wholeheartedly, except for 4 guys, and Gary Carter, Kevin Mitchell, Ray Knight, and Mookie Wilson.
It was Carter who sparked a rally for the ages.
Lined into left field, base hit for Carter, and the Mets are still alive.
Mitchell was called on to pinch hit and kept the patient breathing. There was no margin for error on this long day's journey into night.
And that's going to be hit into center field, base hit. Here comes Carter to score, and the tying run is at third in Kevin Mitchell.
Leading now just 5-4, Boston called on Bob Stanley. His mission, erase a budding hero named Mookie.
All I want to do is I don't want to strike out. And it so happens that Bob Stanley threw a wild pitch.
And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base.
Now, at that point, a big relief is on me now. I mean, I can't lose. There's nothing I can do to lose anymore. When I came to the plate, we were losing, and now I'm still at the plate, and all of a sudden we're tied. I can't lose now, no matter what I do. So I just want to make contact.
Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Here they are on the edge.
Yeah, I've seen that game on ESPN Classic, and you know, you watch it, and you don't realize how close they were. I mean, I didn't realize at that point how close we were, and none of us believed that it was going to be over. And then you watch it, and it's like, wow, these guys are really close. You know, it's like one strike away, 1 out away.
Yep.
And even to this day, there'll be games where, you know, the team I'm coaching or managing, you know, we're down by 2 runs in the last inning with 1 out, and I'm thinking, now's the time that we scored 3, and it is in a World Series.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing.
You catch up with the Bob Stanleys of the world that your paths cross? And
Well, Stanley's actually a pitching coach in our organization.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So I do see him. Yeah, we're friendly reminders of that year.
The ball club we had was that second place might as well have been thousandth place. It didn't matter. We were losers, you know. So there was a feeling of just failure, you know. It wasn't over, you know, but we were failing. It looked like it was over, but we had incredible spirit on that club. We had guts, and we wanted to win. So, you know, and there's fate involved too. There's, you know, when the hits started happening, it was like, all right, you know, that's cool. You know, it was almost, you know, you're almost like putting off the inevitable. Then next thing you know, the thing happens and we win it, and no, it was a wonderful time. Well,
did you believe it when the ball kind of trickled its way through Bill Buckner?
Well, that was almost, you know, I know that's what everybody remembers.
Actually, Bob Stanley's wild pitch, right?
You're right, that was the one that set it all up. That's the one that tied the game.
That's right.
So when it went through, yeah, I was like, okay, great, we won it. You know, we tied it and we still had work to do. Then we won it, and it was all kind of sudden. But then it was over. We were going to win Game 7. You know, it just did not matter. Yeah, that was a done deal after that.
7 still had to be played with the unbeatable Hurst against Darling. Early on, it appeared the Red Sox had recovered, but the Mets hung tough behind the exemplary relief of Sid Fernandez. Then in the 6th, the Mets began to chip away, with Carter reaching out to tie the game at 3. So it stood into the 7th, until Calvin Schiraldi faced series MVP Ray Knight. Both teams would score and score again, but the Mets would never trail. Then in the 9th, Jesse Orosco, and the Mets were champs. Once more.
Thanks to Bobby Ojeda on the left and Howard Johnson in the middle for an extraordinary interview at Russell E. Dietrich Jr. Park in August of 2002. Thanks for all the memories, including the 1986 World Championship.
You have to give it your best shot, and then you come out #1, the Mets.
Thank you. Nice to be here on your program.